Hey guys, Dylan here. Unfortunately, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I got a few wires crossed this week during a couple of our recordings that are going to be affecting both this week's Sunday Scaries that you're about to watch and also the upcoming Splattercast episode. So I did not do my due diligence like I should have, and with the new computer, I guess maybe when I don't know, maybe rebooted the program, signed into the program, it reset some of our settings, and I was not recording through my Yeti microphone here. I was actually recording my audio via my webcam that I record video off of normally. So that was an oversight by my point. Luke sounds perfectly fine. But I do sound a bit more echoey. I wouldn't even necessarily say echoey, but more like boxy. You can kind of tell that it's not as crisp as it was as usual. It doesn't really ruin the episode. We're still going to go ahead and post both of these, but I definitely know it's not up to the standard that you guys are used to from us now, and it's definitely something I want to address and get out in front of and just apologize for. I'm definitely going to be doing a little bit more due diligence, like I said, before I record and just double check these things because, we went months without that issue, but I'm still a little perplexed on what exactly happened. But hey, it does happen from time to time. So I'll be doing a little bit of a checklist beforehand, like I probably should have been this entire time. But yeah, I apologize, and I hope that you'll forgive us and come back for next week's episode, where from here on out you should be getting the better quality microphone here. So thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's Sunday Scaries. It's super good. We have a lot of great stories ahead of us, and I think a lot of great conversations that we want to get you guys involved in, as well as the latest Splattercast episode being not only our longest episode, but a pretty awesome episode, in my opinion. So thank you guys, and we'll be seeing you soon.
Another Sunday, another case of the Scaries to start your work week. Welcome to the newest edition of the Sunday Scaries, where we have all your gore, lore, and more, covering all the latest horror happenings, slicing open all the latest horror news and dissecting it bit by bit, finding all those juicy innards. Pour that cup of coffee and turn on your fright light while we take you on a tour of terror. Dylan, a lot of crazy news happening this week. A lot of big news, legacy horror things. Very surprising, I would say.
Oh yeah, no, this was a very busy week. Like you said, we got everything like kind of hit the fan on Monday. Honestly, like that's when things kind of started rolling in for us, at least. With some of that Halloween news, we got a little bit of Evil Dead stuff. I mean, we're hitting a lot of big franchises here. So like that's kind of been the exciting part for me. Is just it's like for the last couple weeks we've kind of had like a big franchise thing here or there, maybe a conversation piece, but now we've actually got something like tangible, something cooking that I'm very, very curious to see what's going to come of all of it. You know what I mean? So
It's very wild to be, in the space that we're in now, where it's like for the longest time, going into throughout the whole summer, we kind of knew what kind of trajectory we were on for the most part, and it's like within a couple of days, it just kind of changes course with a lot of these different franchises in terms of outlets they're going to be released in. And where they're going to be going. So, very interesting stuff happening. You just never know, I guess, in terms of with the world of streaming and the theater.
no, you never do. I mean, it's always everything's changing all the time. We always talk about streaming every single week on this show. It seems like. I mean, you really can't avoid it. So it's just one of those things where it's like it's going to be a conversation piece for us. And yeah, this week had some big stuff, but also the theater. The theater got a win in this one. We'll be dissecting that in a little bit here. But yeah, no, I'd say it was a good balance, a nice little back and forth little play with each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's always fun because this is a process throughout the week. As soon as we get one of these in the can, we're always thinking about what the next Sunday Scaries is going to look like. So throughout the week, we always have, we're always trading messages saying, oh, we
Hmm.
could do this or we could do that. And, sometimes every story is intriguing. We always get something out of it in terms of if it's a small little grain of news, we kind of turn into some bigger story in terms of being able to have a talking point on it. But this week was just like trading massive stories back and forth of like, oh, we can do this, we can do that. It's kind of one of those scenarios where we don't have a lot where it's like, oh, we have so many different things. Which ones are going to make it on the show? So
That's what I was about to say next was, yeah, it's like we kind of hit that point where it's like, I think it was we were recording the next episode of Splattercast this week, and we had just kind of talked for a minute. I was like, so what's going to make the cut? Like, I know that we're doing this, I know we're doing that, because we try to keep it like as things have fluctuated. I know if you've been watching us from the start, you know that we've kind of had some weeks with 5 stories, some weeks with more, some weeks with less. We're trying to keep it, what is it, to 4 stories
yeah, usually it's that
about.
happy four medium there where that's where we found it's kind of a five sometimes seems like a little much in terms of how long-winded we can be with certain stories, and then as we're adding new segments to the show, it's like four seems to be that good
Magic
marriage
number.
of not too many and just enough to kind of feel like we're having those really in-depth discussions.
No, I feel you on that. Yeah, it's definitely. I think the show flows the best with that. Other than that, for personal news for us, I did a lot of work on getting some new stuff going for this show specifically. So you will see some updated graphics. You will see some updated intros. So I was pretty happy that I was able to get those out. I think that they're pretty good. I know Luke's always singing my praises with that stuff, but yeah, there was definitely with the history of horrors, that was a tough one. That was like trying to figure out exactly how to make that work and look its best. And we're always going to be shifting things a little bit here until we really find that rhythm. But I think that a couple of these are pretty big winners. So
Yeah, I really feel like we're always fine tuning and tweaking things as we go along here, but like this one, the work you did, obviously with the new beast behind you there glowing,
yeah, right.
being able to
She's
kind
a
of
good thing
dust
there.
off a lot of different graphics and things like that. I would say this, what you'll see here is a certain turning point, I think, in the Sunday Scaries, probably Splattercast in general, of what we're working toward and eventually going to get to. We're
Oh,
really close
absolutely.
to where we want to be.
Yeah, I mean, like it's as you guys know, we're always saying it. At least we were saying it for a while. Is that we're learning. We're always trying to figure out what's next. What's the best thing we can do for the show. Majorly, one of the big things that I'm always doing is just like if you guys have any input, any ideas, anything that you can throw our way, please do because like we always want to hear what would be like a good segment or a good thing to do because like we're always here to change up the formula a little bit. I mean, this is more of a relaxed show. This is more something that we can kind of, just bullshit and talk about the news and give our thoughts and opinions. It's our current event show. So it's like, if any show out of all the ones that we're doing are going to be, the most flexible and the most malleable, it'll probably be Sunday Scaries. So, I think that if you guys have any criticisms, critiques, anything that you just want to send our way that might help us out, like please do, because like we're still learning. We're new to this. And, although we have some experience with these tools and everything, I just always want to be at the top of the game to be giving you guys the best content we can week by week.
Yeah, we're ever evolving here, kind of trying to get that branding down and even segments. We're always changing up the segments, trying to figure out what works and what we can get the most mileage out of. So, it's always a process. I think we're really fine tuning it right now. We're really getting into those stages, especially again with the things you'll probably see here and a little bit later in the episodes with the transitions and things like that. It really feels um, I don't know, it really feels like we're getting into that rhythm, especially visually. As we've been podcasting for years, off and on. So it's like we started with by admission only, moved into Splattercast. We did them both for a little bit of this simultaneously, and it's like this whole new visual medium that we're doing here is just absolutely new to us. We I think we traded a little bit of a text saying, "Hey, let's get back into it," and that turnaround was very short. It was
Yeah.
like maybe 2 weeks at most where we decided, hey, let's get back into it and let's just do it. And then we kind of those Splattercast episodes, those first few, we were really backlogging them, so we kind of went from probably like what we had that first I guess retcon in a sense, where episode 1 and then we went to probably episode 3. We had all those set and ready to go. And Sunday Scaries is week to week always. It's like
Mhm.
we're covering the news, so we have to be as timely as possible here. So this one is always up to the wire.
Oh yeah, and then also like we try to more or less just throw little feelers out. Like we have little bubbles of things. So it's like when we do our little shorts, I think that that's been a really great way for us to kind of keep up with you guys to the minute with current events news. Like I did one on the two. There were two shorts this week about two of the topics we're discussing on the show. So I did one on Halloween. You did one on killer clowns. So it's just one of those things where it's like I like doing that. I definitely want to reach a bigger audience with it, hopefully one day, where we can kind of get some of that early feedback and then, maybe even integrate some of those comments and questions onto the show when we're talking segments. Like, I mean, these are all things we're conscious of and things we're keeping up. I've got a little board over here of just ideas and, plans, goals, sets. It's nice to be able to, with the new computer, I was able to knock a few of those off this week. But I'm just filling in those slots again with more and more. So it's like this is, in all intensive purposes, this is like a second job for at least you and me. Like we're treating it like that. We want this to be, something that we become a major hub and hopefully a major space on the YouTube sphere and the podcast sphere. So that way it's like we can grow an audience and just keep making content that you guys will enjoy. We've got a lot of stuff coming down the pipeline. With the month of October coming up, we are not sleeping on it. We have been we've been keeping the ball rolling and we've been keeping things going. And I was a little stressed this week about it, but Luke, brought me down to the earth and was just like, hey, relax, it's all good, we got time. But
we have it. Our Halloween schedules have already kicked into gear in terms of research and trying to cover everything that we want to get to because we've talked about it for a few years with Splattercast and everything. We've always had big intentions of doing certain things for Halloween, and it never really gets there. So this is hopefully the Halloween where we kind of release everything that we've been wanting to release up until this point. So, we're already feeling it where we already have that regular rhythm of Sunday Scary, Splattercast, and obviously timely reviews and things like that. But in our what is left of our little spare time is usually eaten up now by what we're going to be doing for Halloween. So we're in full gear here.
Always. But I love it. I mean, it's just nothing more satisfying than just watching our channel grow and watching you guys enjoy our content, seeing the little view counter go up every week and, just kind of being like, yeah, like I think we're hitting with you guys. Let us know. I mean, like if we're doing well, if there's something we can improve, we're always here for it. But yeah, I think I got to interject here on a little something. I told Luke I was going to bring this up real quick just because this, although posted on the 25th, so 2 days ago, kind of snuck under my radar with all the news we had this week. But it's just a little blurb, a little sidebar. Like I said, huge Friday the 13th fans, both of us here. So I want to basically keep you guys in the loop on anything Friday the 13th. So what was it, 2 Sunday Scaries ago? 2 weeks ago, we discussed the fact that there was talks of a new film coming up. And Bloody Disgusting posted an article this week. I actually saw a video from 3C Films this morning. Check out his channel. He's a real cool dude. I like his coverage a lot. He was talking about this, and I just was like, wow, I mean, with everything going on, I just completely should have been on top of this right away as far as it being Friday the 13th, because like, as you guys know,
completely.
I did technically, yeah, I did, but like, with this being my favorite franchise, I got to humble myself a little bit and be like, man, that's rough. Like, I'm a Michael fan, of course, but as I've said time and time again, Jason's my boy. So if we can get anything in there,
to you, and then I was like, well, I'm sure he's gonna see it, and it wasn't like necessarily a big topic.
You gotta send me whatever you got anytime, because it's like with a baby and everything, sometimes things just slide under the radar. But yeah, no, I mean, like, this is really cool. So basically, it's not a lot, but it is another kind of sign that we could be leaning towards getting a new film here soon. So basically, the gist of it is that Sean S. Cunningham, director of the original film, was, and he produced all the others. He has a cameo, and for those of you who don't know, it's basically like an app or a site or whatever where you can pay money to have like celebrities or influencers kind of shout you out, birthday messages, whatever you want to do. Like you just pay them and they'll do it. But he's got one, and he changed his bio, and it's kind of it's a nugget of news. Like, don't take this and run with it, but it is one of those things where Bloody Disgusting felt they could report on it, so why don't we do it here? If you go to his about section on his cameo, it basically says Sean S. Cunningham, director and producer of the seminal horror Friday the 13th franchise, creating the iconic villain Jason Voorhees. The movies have spawned 12 installments with a 13th scheduled for next year. So, and as a lot of people in the article and people online are pointing out, that was changed this week. So that's pretty big, considering he has been kind of at the center of this lawsuit with Victor Miller. It's kind of those two have been going head to head. So that's awesome. Like, that's, it's like I said, a nugget of news, but like I am getting more excited. And I said that we have to kind of be weary and we have to take everything with a grain of salt until we get a solid announcement. But this is another big head who's behind the franchise moving forward and saying, okay, this could be something.
Yeah, and that's where I kind of go either way with this, where it's such a random blurb to put out there, especially on Cameo, where it's like, is this just a thing to be randomly messing with fans because there's so much buzz, especially with the little bit of news that we got a couple weeks ago, or is this something that's so random, so weird that you really want to be looking for news that he was just like, here, let me pop it on here to see if anyone's really going to notice. Maybe, just a small announcement here saying, yeah, we are going to get something next year. So I go either way with this. I feel like he's so close to the franchise that he wouldn't mess with fans like that, knowing how long fans have been waiting for a new installment in the Friday the 13th franchise. I just thought it was so weird that you would announce it on Cameo.
And it's not like it's an announcement. It's
Yep.
more, it was just a bio change that I don't think he anticipated anybody to really pick up on. But it could mean that in the next couple of weeks, we could be getting an announcement. Now, where my head is at, a little bit after watching 3C Films' video, he didn't necessarily bring this part up, but he did bring up the fact that, so they say 2023. Now, it's a short turnaround. We don't know how long or how far into production they could be on this, so they've been keeping it hush-hush. They could have had the script and everything done, this past spring, and they could have been kind of moving forward. And like the last news stated, we would be getting solid confirmation and news at some point down the road here. So he brings up the fact that with it coming out in 2023, it's kind of ironic that we have Halloween ending, supposedly, or at least the Laurie Strode timeline ending in this trilogy. So we're kind of talking about what's going to replace it. And we kind of thought the Jigsaw was going to sneak up there and take it, with them confirming a film for 2023 in October. But if you look at the calendar for next year, we have, and this is a huge missed opportunity if they do not pursue it, a Friday the 13th in October. So yeah, that's a big deal.
That's prime real estate right there,
right? And they like to release them on those days. The last one, the remake or whatever, was released in February because it was a Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, that's a way, we talk about how well Halloween did coming back in 2018, the amount of money that it did, it crushed. This is how you do that. This is how you make that money. Not only are you, kind of playing up to the Halloween season, but you're also playing up the fact that it is a legit Friday the 13th. Yeah. I would venture to say, even if the movie was terrible, that just because this is such a big deal and it is my franchise that I adore, I would probably see this in theaters twice that day, just to say I did. You
Yeah.
know, like I'm so hungry and ravenous for anything Friday the 13th. So if we have to, I'll do a weekly segment on Sunday Scaries here where it's just Friday the 13th watch or whatever you want to call it, where I'm just any nugget of news once we get that official announcement. I'll do it because like I'm that hungry for it.
Now, and easily the audience is going to show up for that Friday 13th. No matter, you could release that midsummer and people are going to go check it out just because everyone's been waiting for so long. Now, do you think, I know with, what was it, The Blair Witch, where they had filmed it and I think they had called it The Woods or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And people didn't know that it was a Blair Witch installment until like after the fact. And then it became news. Would you love them to kind of film this, keep it completely under wraps, under something random like the lake or
Oh
something
yeah.
like that, and
Oh yeah.
then just spring it on people? I think that would be very interesting because, you know, we don't need the buzz around this anymore. There's been enough buzz with the uh, legal action, the lawsuit, all this other stuff going on that, you know, fans were already there even previously before the legal stuff. I mean, every time there's a Friday 13th, fans are walking out of theater, good or bad, wondering when the next one's going to be. So it's like that audience is there. It doesn't matter. You don't need the buzz anymore. Um, People are waiting for this. So I mean, you could just keep this completely under wraps, cast, director, concept, everything, and then just spring it on people. Like if we don't get anything about this until what, if it's, let's theoretically say it's going to be released the Friday 13th in October. If we don't get anything until like a month before, I mean, the audience is going to be there. Everyone's going to clear their schedule. It's going to be sold out as soon as those tickets are available. Uh, the theater will be packed for the newest Friday 13th installment.
Yeah, and I mean, hear me out on this. It might be too soon, but considering we have this and they're already updating cameos, they're already messing with that stuff. It's kind of it would be a smart move, and they've done this before. They did it. There was heavy rumors that Avatar, like recently with Doctor Strange 2, that they were going to put the Avatar trailer before um, Doctor Strange, and it kind of leaked out that that was going to happen. It was supposed to be a surprise. So it's one of those things where it's like, let's say Blumhouse, who has been very adamant and has been going around saying, "Oh, I want to get Friday the 13th. I want that so bad. I want that. I want Nightmare on Elm Street." What if he did it? What if they solved the issue and then Sean S. Cunningham and then we're like, "Okay, you guys can do Friday the 13th. Like, let's make it happen." So we're sitting in the theater. Halloween Ends is about to start, and the last trailer they give us, all it has to be is that and then the mask, October blah blah blah, or October Friday the 13th, 2023. That's all you got to give us. That's all they would have to do.
You know, I'm here for it. My question would be, at that point, you get the theme, you get everything, the announcement, and we're going into Halloween Ends. Are you going to be able to concentrate at least for the first few minutes, thinking of
No.
what's going to? Yes,
No.
that's like that's what's like. I would love it, but I feel like it would just be. It's such a big announcement that I don't know if you do it right then.
But we have some news about Halloween, so I don't think I would be that upset because I could just go home and watch it, and
That
we'll
is
get into
true.
that. So
That
it's
is
one of those
true.
things where it's kind of like, and maybe I doubt that they would literally derail an entire movie just to do that. But hey, I'm just saying, like, I am a sucker for, my buddy Jeff Rowe makes fun of me for this. I have always said I am a sucker for a good marketing campaign, and that is how you start one right there.
Yeah.
Like, I would fucking love that. I'm gonna love it anyway. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, that's Jason's my guy, so like I'm all for it.
Hey, if we're sitting here a year from now discussing potential, a release date for Friday 13th because it's been in production already, I will be a happy camper.
100%. I like that. Very good. Very good.
All right. Well, I guess we can get into to officially start the Sunday Scaries with the kill of the week. Look
Very
at that.
nice. Very
And
nice.
a little product of Dylan's hard work over the week with his new CPU back there. I love that intro. It's so animated.
Thank
Um,
you. I appreciate it.
again, we're fine tuning everything here. But to get into the actual kill of the week, we are doing Pet Cemetery 2, which Dylan, this one is a little blind spot in
Mhm.
your horror realm of things you have seen and have not seen.
Yeah, I feel like over the next few weeks we're going to be getting into a few of those. Little tease if you've been paying attention to episodes of the Sunday Scaries of what maybe our next Splattercast episode is going to be, but it's something that again is a blind spot for me, something I haven't seen. So it's kind of like, well, let's see where this goes. So um, yeah, Pet Cemetery 2, never seen it. Not that I haven't ever had any inkling to. It's just kind of just never been something I've had access to. Really, I think
Yeah.
it's actually isn't it on your Voodoo?
Yes, it is. It's on my
How long?
Voodoo.
How long has it been on there?
It's been on there for a minute.
All right, so then I've
Probably.
had access, but
Yeah,
I
you've
just
had
never
access.
saw
You
it.
just didn't care. You're like whatever. Are you a
Sorry,
fan of the original Pet Cemetery?
I do like it. It scared the piss out of me when I was a kid. Not even the Zelda stuff, really. Like that was unsettling. What I remember very vividly was when the neighbor is telling the story of the what was he? He was a teenager or whatever, a boy who got
Yeah.
buried up there, and they show him like eating a dog or something like that. Like I don't know what it was because I had already seen the movie once, but I remember being at home watching that one night, and just that scene just fucked me up hard. Like I don't know what it was. I might have been home alone or something, but like, yeah, I just had to turn it off. I was not feeling good about that. So it's kind of been one of those things where it's like I do like the movie. I respect it a lot. I was excited for the retelling or the remake, and that did not hit for me. I was not a fan. But
I
it
still
was one of
haven't seen that
those.
one.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't recommend it. It's not great. But it is one of those things where it's like I appreciate it, but I guess maybe just never enough to really pursue it and go towards the sequel.
Yeah. And that's where the first one, I had seen the first one. This was another scenario where I saw the sequel before I'd actually seen the original. And I don't mind the original. It doesn't hit necessarily with me after seeing the second one where this one's very campy. It's a lot of fun. It is something that um it's on my Voodoo because I like to put this one on while I'm doing other things. It's not something where you have to sit down and pay that much attention to. You can kind of go in and out of it. Just with different entertaining scenes, which again, as we get into the kill of the week, this is absolutely one of my favorite kind of campier kills of the entire film.
Yeah, and like I said, Luke and I go through and we watch these right before we record. As for something I have not seen before, I'm interested. This was very unique and interesting. You had described it to me earlier in the week when you told me what the kill was going to be, but now just actually seeing it in full force, I'm like, okay, you know what, I could get behind that. I'm interested.
Well, let's hop into it here.
Alrighty, Edward Furlong, one of
Good
my
old Eddie
favorites.
here. So to kind of set up the scene, he is being bullied by this kid. I believe he is from Big. So he's constantly being bullied by him. He says some really off remarks right before this about his Edward Furlong's mother being dead.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Clancy Brown here, Gus is already dead. He's been buried in Pet Cemetery. Now he's back. So he's just kind of all into these hijinks here.
God, Clancy Brown, man, what a wonderful character actor who pops up in so many things. A Star Wars fan of mine. He's been popping up on The Mandalorian here and there
Highlander,
recently. Oh yeah, dude, so good. Fucking love him.
you can't beat him. This
No,
is
no.
just such a weird kind of kill. I absolutely love it.
Oh
Picking up the
yeah,
motocross bike.
and like so, obviously the intention here was it to kill the kid or just to scare him? Because
I
like,
think okay, so I don't think he really has a plan here. I think he was going to just scare him initially until his scarf here gets caught.
yeah,
And then he just goes full force with it because you can see he's thinking about it. Now he just presses on the gas. He's like, let's
he's
go
just
for it.
going. He's full committing to that one there. Yeah, pretty brutal, pretty funny. Like you said, a lot of camp
And
to
the
that.
aftermath right there,
Oh
I
yeah,
love that they don't really show it. They do that extreme wide shot of him laying on the ground, kind of just seeing. Now, uh, Clyde is actually buried in Pet Cemetery, so we do see a little return of
Mm,
him later on, which is very unsettling.
very
Um,
interesting. And I did have to check on this because for someone who hasn't seen the movie, I do know a little bit about it. But so Mary Lambert did return to direct the sequel.
yes.
Okay, so yeah, that's pretty cool. It's always nice when you can have, especially someone who was as close to it in the original. Which, like I said, I like the original a lot. It unsettles me. It does its job. So full credit and remarks to her for making a really creepy, unsettling film. Honestly, it's a movie that I fear watching now a little bit more, just because I have, it's no secret, I have a father, I have a son now, and I think, oh wow, Luke's surprised about that. But yeah, no, I'm a little concerned about watching it just because I think those scenes with Gage might hit a little bit differently. It's amazing what happens once you kind of step into that role in your life, what media can do to you, and just
Yeah.
kind of like how seeing it from a different perspective now. It's cheesy, I know. I'm sorry to say that for those of you who have no interest in kids, but like it does change you. Like it definitely gives you some different perspectives.
And going back to the original director, kind of coming back for this, I don't know. For me, it kind of gives a strange, where you look at it and you have the original, and then the director does not come back and they make a sequel, and it just feels like a cash grab in a sense. Where this one, it almost has some sort of credibility when the original director comes back to think, okay, well, they had enough vision behind this to think, okay, well, I'm going to come back for the sequel. So even though I know there's a drop in quality here, a lot of people say, depending on what you're looking for in terms of these types of films, where it's like I still feel that it has some sort of credibility behind it just because the original director did return.
Oh yeah, and I mean, like, I think that it's definitely intriguing. I like the concept a lot from what I understand from it, and it's just one of those things where it's like I'll have to give it a watch. I mean, considering you give it such high praise, and I mean, like, it's one of those things where it's like this is not the first time you brought this movie up to me, so I will have to check it out at some point. Especially because, would you say that this is one that could end up on Splattercast at some point down the road?
I think so. I think it'll probably be a minute just because this is one that I would have to do a little more research on to see
Of course.
how much is in the production notes, things like that. Is it worth a full episode, or is it in a billion different properties that we're kind of trying to create here? Is it something that we can fit elsewhere in terms of a short video or something like that? Because this one is a lot of fun. I just don't know how much stories are behind this one to kind of really do a deep dive into it.
It
But why
would
don't we
be
do
interesting.
a little farther deep dive into that kill?
100%. So picking up the motorcycle. Now, when you described this to me, I honestly had a tough time envisioning it, but now like seeing it in the flesh, it is just one of those things where it's like, oh my god, like very brutal, very very creatively brutal.
And the dynamic here is that Clyde is the bully here, but especially where we have like an adult versus a child here, basically at the bare bones here in terms of the violent aspect here. And just such a weird kill. You know what I mean? Like something where visually you have to see it to believe it, because like you said, just doing a description there doesn't really do it justice. Having to actually see it
Oh
um,
yeah,
is a whole different world.
yeah, and I mean, like, there's a certain level of class to that kind of a kill, I would say, just because, they don't show the carnage right off the rip. They don't
Yep.
show the act actually happening. But the fact that you see the scarf go up into it, and then it's just Clancy Brown's face and the blood hitting him and stuff like that. I always appreciate when you have restraint like that, because it really gets your mind kind of racing about what is this going to look like. And then I do appreciate a good payoff though, because I'm a gore hound as well. Like, I love
Yeah.
my violence, so it's like
Naturally.
I kind of would say that I go back and forth with it. um but I gotta tell you, like, right now it's just one of those things where it's like I love just the subtleness of it, just the restraint they could show, but then afterwards showing you just what the aftermath is. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
And they don't linger on the aftermath of the gore right there, because initially the scene cuts before that, but then another character pops up and kind of switches Gus's view to that character. So it's like then we're off and moving right again. So And again, we will have a little bit of time in watching the film where Clyde does return, but I just love the way that scene plays out, especially the reaction shots of just the blood splatter onto Gus's face. It's like one of those classic, 80s, early 90s. That's how they did it a lot of times, and now it pops up as more so a tribute. I feel instead of a necessity, and every time I see it, I still have a love for it.
Oh yeah, 100%. I get it. I can see why, just from the little glimpses I've had, why you have a kind of an affinity for this film.
But why don't we pay our respects to that bully, Clyde Parker?
I feel like I
An
gotta
earring and a
do
scarf. What early
right.
'90s bully right there.
I feel like I gotta make a little animation for that now because we're upgrading so much with everything here. So I feel like I gotta add a little something in there because I think you had an idea for that at some
Yeah,
point down the road. So maybe we'll get there.
we'll get there eventually. But definitely we can hop into our another new animation created by Dylan for the history of horrors.
Trapped in the Middle Ages.
All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up.
Yeah,
As
I went back and forth for hours with different sound bites. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And then I kind of came to it and I was just like, well, Army of Darkness takes place, in the 1300s. I'm like, there's got to be something in there. So I'm just watching clips after clip after clip of Army of Darkness. And then finally, one of the next clip auto plays and it's the Scream Factory trailer. And that's where I got that from. I was just like, oh, that's fucking perfect. Like, I love that.
It was meant to be, and that was like I know because you had messaged me saying you were trying to figure out what exactly to put there, and I was like going back and forth too of like I was looking more so at director sound bites, John Carpenter, Alfred Hitchcock, things like that that potentially could show up on there, and I just could not find anything. So as soon as you sent it to me, I was like, oh my gosh, this is absolutely perfect.
I appreciate it. I like it a lot. It was definitely, out of all of them, that was the tough one. I would say there's always one or two when it comes to this kind of stuff. When you're doing work like this, that you get stumped, and it's just like it eats away at you. Because like literally for days, I was just sitting there at work, just like, dude, what the fuck am I gonna do about history of horrors? But it finally all clicked, and just under the wire too. So I was pretty happy about it.
And we got there.
Alrighty, so you want to introduce us to our first
Yes, well,
segment?
we've already talked about it a little bit with the Kill of the Week because one of the films that was released on August 28th, I believe it was 1992, is Pet Sematary 2. And there we
Yes.
go. Directed by Mary Lambert, written by Richard Oughton, and of course, this is Edward Furlong's follow-up to Terminator 2, which is very interesting sequel to match up to Terminator 2, I feel.
Yeah, no, that's different. I didn't know that. I mean, like,
Yes.
I know his career is not super deep, but I mean, it's one of those things where it's just kind of like, that's the follow up. I mean, obviously, Terminator 2 probably took the job before Terminator 2 even came out.
I
You
would
would
I
think.
would assume so. I don't know 100%. But because I don't know. Again, I only did very superficial research here because I figure if we're ever going to dive more into it, we will. I believe that there was a different concept for Pet Cemetery 2 that did not involve um, a teenage boy, and they had reworked it to fit Edward Furlong into it to capitalize on his fame of Terminator 2. So I don't know if they pivoted completely in order to cast around or right around the casting of Edward Furlong, or this was let's write it and then see if we can get Edward Furlong because I think he was very much the centerpiece, the selling point of Pet Cemetery 2.
Yeah, so I'm just looking through his filmography here. And so, like, he does that. He does Pet Cemetery 2. He stays in the realm of horror with Brain Scan, which is another one I have not seen, but I've heard is pretty entertaining. Pretty weird movie. Do you know anything
Yeah.
about Brain Scan?
I've never seen it. It always pops up. I think it might be on Tubi right now. I don't know 100%, but It always pops up streaming somewhere. It's one that I think you had brought to my attention when we were working on a script. This was a few years ago. Thinking maybe we should check this one out to make
Oh
sure.
yeah, I
our
remember
con-
that.
Yeah, making sure the concept isn't too close to it, and we never actually committed to it. It is one we will have to eventually check out because I do hear varying things about it.
Yeah, no, I would be interested. Since it's one that's just not on my radar. But yeah, then really he does a couple of things that are just kind of like little niche parts. A couple of things that are involved with like some Oscar contenders. It looks like. But then you kind of get up to 19. What are we talking here? 1998, the year of my birth. We're talking about American History X, which I know is not horror, but I think is just really a masterclass in filmmaking. That's
It's a different kind of horror.
oh yeah, I mean it's more of the horror that hits at home, not to be too
Yeah.
cheesy, but yeah, that's a rough one. That is definitely one that's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah,
Literally,
great filmmaker.
yeah, he was almost like a one-time deal director, but then he kind of came back and did a couple things in the late 2000s. But like, yeah, he doesn't have much. It looks like he kind of showed up on the scene with that, and then did some more shorts and music videos, and then really just took
Called it a
off.
career.
Yeah, but I've also heard some not so savory things about the director himself.
Oh well, there we go.
Yeah,
We're
kinda
getting to the root of the social issues here on
Yes.
Sunday Scaries.
But yeah, I
Sounds
mean,
like
you're talking Edward Furlong following up Terminator 2. I mean, with Pet Cemetery 2, I guess maybe his agent was like, "Well, the sequel to one movie worked. Let's try to get another one." And how's Pet Cemetery 2 received when it came
I
out?
don't think it was received very well at all. Again, only light research, but I believe it was not met with open arms in any sense. Again, this one, I think a lot of criticism is the campiness of it. It has a very specific feel to it, and especially being like, a horror sequel in the early '90s. I can't imagine that a lot of people were anticipating something like this.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like it's kind of in a league of its own.
Yes. Well, we
But
can jump.
yeah, I was gonna say if you want to take us into the next one, 'cause it's truly in a league of its own.
Yes, another sequel we'll be talking about. Not nearly as fun as Pet Cemetery 2, but this is Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. Directed and written by Rob Zombie. The third installment was planned, but never actually came to fruition in any sense. I think people had their fill after the sequel of Rob Zombie's kind of reimagining of Halloween.
Yeah.
This one is a unique film.
Yes, we're going to cover Rob Zombie's Halloween, whether we like it or not. We're going to cover both of them at some point down the road. We just have to. I mean, there's so much behind both of these films.
We
I mean,
did something. Was it for By Admission? Where we
I don't
talked
even
about it? Because I just felt I remember watching them. I had to watch the sequel as a chore, basically. And I just feel mentally drained after watching that film because it's not fun.
I think at one point, if I remember correctly, because this was early podcast days for us, so we really didn't understand the value as much, or maybe I didn't, because I know I spearheaded this a little bit more with the idea of doing multiple films in one setting. But you were kind of always pushing like, maybe we should just cover one movie. But I was just like, no, it'll be more fun. Let's do it like this. I was totally wrong, because you don't get enough time to discuss everything that's going on. And we would literally run these episodes for hours, and it would just be like, oh my God, like we hardly got to really dive into anything.
Yeah. And now we're just running episodes for hours, diving into one.
So. Yeah. But I think it's a much higher quality show, in my opinion.
So as well.
But yeah, no, this is one where you're right. I think we were discussing all the Halloween films, or maybe it was just the sequels. But yeah, that was coming down to the wire towards the tail end, where we had to kind of discuss Rob Zombie and Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, which, I will say the first film, for what it is, I don't necessarily think that I hate it as much as I did for a long time. I look at it as its own thing. It is truly, at the end of the day, at least that first half is kind of Rob Zombie's take on the material. He's trying to do something different. Maybe I soften up a little bit because, I was excited and looking forward to like a Halloween 2018 and their take on how they're going to continue this story. And now I look back on that and it's like, well, it's not what I want. It's not great, but it is different. But this one is a little too different. It goes way off the rails for me. And,
Yeah.
it's like I don't really even retain any, because like all these movies, they have some, maybe not Resurrection, but they all have some rewatchability to it. There is an hankering in me sometimes to throw on some of these sequels, but then I'm just sitting there and I'm just like, God damn. I start this movie from time to time. I get through the hospital shit, and then it's just really once you get into those Rob Zombie characters, I can't watch them. Like they're just so annoying. And it's like I think I'd be more accepting if it was a Rob Zombie film, but like it's Halloween. No, these are not the people that I've come to see.
And again, I think Rob Zombie may have been a little more successful if he had created his own slasher. I think I would have been more accepting of that. But even like talking about Resurrection, where Resurrection, I can flip through the films that I own and say, hey, I want to watch a really, really bad sequel. And I'll turn on Resurrection before I ever turn on Halloween or Halloween 2. Rob Zombies, just because they're just not something that I have any fun with. Again, it is like a chore to watch the films, especially the first one. I'll say he tried to put a different spin on it, and then the sequel he really just went off the rails with. So it's that sequel to me is just, it's no fun at all. Resurrection I will definitely go back and watch before I watch Rob Zombie's Halloween 2.
I agree. I mean, although I don't catch myself watching Resurrection as often. Every once in a while, I'll watch H2O and then be like, oh, maybe I'll throw it on. But, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, maybe I'll watch, like when I watch Halloween 4 and 5, like I'll watch those. I like 4 a lot. I think that 5 is, it's middle of the road. But then I get to 6, and then I just think about what 6 was supposed to be, because now I know all that behind the scenes and stuff. And it makes it more watchable, but it is one of those things where it's just kind of like, But then you got Paul Rudd in there too, so it's kind of like, fuck it. I like it.
I mean, Donald Pleasance, Paul Rudd. I mean, it has some redeeming qualities. Again, it's another one I'll put on 6 before I put on Resurrection, I feel. But, none of them are, like, great, but they're at least worthy of a rewatch in terms of bad sequels. Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, not so much.
Nope, I would agree with you there. Not so great. If there's any Halloween sequel that I'm going to recommend that's not Halloween 1 or 2, well, not Halloween 2, the original Halloween 2, I'm going to say it's this bad boy right here, Halloween 3.
There we go.
You got it up in your corner over there. I got the NECAs back here. It's just...
You're not going to twist my arm. I
fucking
will
love
watch
that
Halloween
movie,
3 till the end of time.
Oh, yeah. God, I can't wait till the day we can dissect that movie in full, because like that is going to be a long show. Because like there is so much, and I guess this is kind of, you can use this as our segue into our first topic, but like it's just like it is really where I think the franchise should have kept going. I know that they got cold feet after this one, but like, and I saw a tweet about it this week. If you would have just taken Halloween 3 off the title, this movie would be an all-time horror classic.
Yes, I feel that's exactly how I feel about it. This is one that there's looking back, as we are big horror heads, where looking back, there are films that you would love to have sat in a theater to see during a release here. And Halloween 3 is one of those that I would love to have been in the theater just watching that Silver Shamrock countdown and experiencing that for the first time. Now, I know it wasn't well received because Michael wasn't in it, but that's just something I really would have loved to have experienced in a theater.
No, I feel you. I'm right there with you, man. That would be really great. One of these years, I know that Fathom or somebody's going to put it out. We'll have to go take advantage of it.
We'll be right there. We just have to figure out which masks we're going to wear. I want the pumpkin head.
You can wear the pumpkin. I'll wear the skull.
Perfect.
Let's do it.
Done and done. Well, let's jump into our actual news, where we'll transport us into 2022 instead of in the Halloween 3s or Rob Zombie Halloween 2, as to what is coming out this year.
Yes.
Michael Myers is returning to Haddonfield once again this Halloween, and the fans The fans eager to see Mikey do some slicing and dicing won't even have to go to the theater to see it. That's right. Put on your favorite jack-o'-lantern PJs and relax on the couch because Halloween Ends is also streaming on Peacock. The conclusion of the David Gordon Green saga will meet its end in some fashion on October 14th in both theaters and streaming. For better or worse, this will be one of the most talked about films this Halloween. Was making this available on streaming the right call to get it out to an even bigger audience, or should have the epic encounter between Laurie and Michael stayed in the theater?
Well, if you saw my short, if you didn't, that's okay. I'm going to get into kind of some of my thoughts from it. I'm of two minds with this. On one hand, I get why they might want to do this. The film Halloween Kills, for the time, and you got to remember, we were still very much in the pandemic when the film was released. So it's just one of those things where it's like, for the time, it was a good move. I think that, there was still a lot of trepidation and a lot of people that weren't interested in really going to the theater yet. We were still warming up, but now we've had a pretty great summer as far as box office returns go. It actually turns out that, and I'll kind of talk about this a little more with, our last segment here. But like, as it turns out, this week was the lowest week for a summer box office gross. And, that's pretty great considering numbers were not, always that great. It was kind of like you had to wait for that one of those movies to hit. Normally, and the stigma was that you had to be a Marvel movie or a superhero movie of that caliber to really make any money at the box office. Well, Michael Myers makes money at the box office, and, it seems to have done well for them. I know that Universal is behind Peacock and they want to keep pushing their subscribers. Peacock's doing really well as far as staying in the game, which is nice to see, because we've highlighted Peacock a couple of times on this show and said that, they're really coming up in the streaming space. But we're not in 2020 anymore. We're here in 2022, and but we've had Top Gun Maverick, we've had all these movies come out, we had Jurassic World, everything come out and crush. So when we're leading up to this film, I'm thinking it's going to be a theater-only release. It makes total sense. You want to get that 2018 money again. But no, they released this on streaming as well, and I thought that was an interesting move. But is it the right move? Only time is going to tell, but for right now, I don't think a lot of people, including me, like, I'm of two minds with it, but like, a lot of people are saying this is a bad move.
Okay, so question I pose. 2018, the success of 2018. Critically, fans, overall, very positive, made a lot of money. Going into Halloween Kills, very...
A lot of buzz.
Coming out of that, there are things people like, there are things people absolutely hated. So we're in a different kind of position right here. Now, if Halloween Kills was met with the same praise that Halloween was met in 2018, would they have committed and doubled down to, okay, this is going to be in the theater? Because, like, I feel in a certain element here, when I did the short months ago when the trailer was first released, that I do feel like Halloween now, the franchise, is fighting a little bit from underneath, trying to win some fans back from Halloween Kills. So I could see some fans tapping out and saying, I'm gonna wait on this one. I'm not gonna go to the theater to see it. I want to see what the reviews are, and then maybe I'll make that jump. Because regardless, now I feel like whether you love it or hate Halloween Kills, I think a lot of people are going to end up watching Halloween Ends that first weekend that it's out.
I think you're right, but at the same time, yes, are they fighting underneath a little bit? But I think more or less, with this being, we don't know when the next Michael Myers film, we don't know the next time we're going to see him on screen. I think that has a little bit of saving grace for it, as the fact of it's like, there are going to be people who are like, oh, it's Halloween Ends, how they do it with all these franchises, where it's like, it's the final chapter. I want to go see it. I want to be there for the end of it. Like, there's a lot of people who aren't in this space, a lot of casual moviegoers who might be more enticed to see it regardless of how the last one was received, because they think it's the end. They think this is it.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times the general public has to fall for that trick, but I digress. It is what it is. Because obviously we know that, they're going to bring him back at some point, whether it's 2 years from now, 10 years from now, Michael's going to show back up on screen. And like I've been saying, I said it in my short, I think this is the last time we see Laurie Strode.
Yeah.
I think that this is the best place to leave it. I don't have any hate towards Jamie Lee Curtis. I think she's doing the best she can with the script she's given. And I mean, like, I like seeing her on screen. I think she has a great dynamic. But I mean, it's just kind of getting to that point where it's just like, could we have her come back again? Is this really going to be every time we have Michael show up on screen, we're just going to have another, oh, Jamie Lee Curtis is reprising the role. And it's like, this again feeds into my disappointment with 2018 because everything leading into it, and I'm not going to go too far down the rabbit hole with this because we'll have plenty of time to talk about it coming up in the next couple months, is just why I think I was so disappointed, because all the pieces were there. Everything was there for this to be a good, definitive, all right, we're here, we're doing it, let's go. Feels like this was our last chance at that. And now it's kind of come. It's not really how I wanted it to go. So it's like I kind of feel like it's with this movie, even though I have my reservations, I still think this thing's going to crush. I still think it's going to crush the box office. So why are we cutting the audience like that? Why are we cutting it off at the knees? Another point that was brought up, I think it was on the John Campea show, is that we're talking about, because they always discuss how Warner Brothers released all those movies in 2020. Even when the theater started to open back up, they never shifted back from that plan. So Dune could have made more money. Suicide Squad could have made more money. All these great movies they released could have made more money. Those are $200 million plus films. And this, maybe at most 60 to 70 million. So it's not like they have a high threshold to really, that's a lot of money, but it's not like a lot of money in the grand scheme of things. So it's like, maybe they're just like, well, we know a lot of people are going to go to the theater to see it. But if we offer it at home, we can also boost our subscribers on Peacock.
Yeah.
Maybe. Well, I don't know. It's a weird decision.
Yeah. Well, see, and I think this is kind of having your cake and eating it too, because again, you're sitting last year, I did not go to the theater to see Halloween Kills. I meant to. I kept saying I was, but I woke up very early when Halloween Kills was released on Peacock, and that's where I watched it. And then I kept watching. I think I watched it since its release probably 4 or 5 times within the first 3 days that it had been released to the audience. So then it was just like, I think I had my fill. I never actually went out to the theater to see it. Now this one, it's going to be a little different for me. I'm definitely going to watch it on Peacock. I'm going to go out to the theater to see it because, this is in theory the end of. Well, this is the end of the David
dragging you saga. Opening night with me. You're coming to this.
Oh, obviously, so. I'll be there. But so this one, I feel like, again, you're talking to 2 guys here that are going to watch on Peacock and going to go see it in theater. You can't beat hearing the Halloween theme in a theater. I will say, it's not the same listening to it at home. Watching Halloween Kills and going to the 2018 Halloween, 2 different experiences. Whereas I was so happy to see that hear that Halloween theme, see the opening credits in the theater. Halloween Kills, I didn't have it and I do miss it. So it's like going back in. That audience is built in. You're releasing a Michael Myers flick in October, mid-October. I mean, it's there. That audience is there. It doesn't matter. You're going to make a big box office, regardless if it's available on streaming. Kids, adults, anyone going on dates, anything like that, are going to want to go to the theater to be scared for that experience. So Halloween's going to be a Halloween experience in mid-October. So I don't think you're really missing out on too much, because I don't think this is really swaying anyone. If you were going to go to the theater previously before this announcement, I think you're still going to go to the theater after. I think maybe it will change in the sense, I'm going to go to the theater to see it, and then the next day or the day after that, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to watch it again, which is definitely what we're going to be doing.
Yes, I mean, it's a bonus to us because we kind of, beforehand, we didn't really know how we wanted to tackle this movie's release, whether we wanted to do like a full Splattercast episode on it or anything like that, because I feel like we're going to have a lot to say.
Yeah.
We have a lot to say about this trilogy already, so it's kind of going to be like, what are we going to do? But I think that this benefits our channel because it does give us the luxury of being able to go home and watch it a couple of times and really digest it and not have to just be like, well, we got to plan, we got to pay, we got to go to the theater again, we got to do all this. It's like, it does make it a lot easier, because I feel like with Prey, we had the opportunity to do that with it being strictly streaming, and I feel like our content was pretty good with that. So it's interesting to me that, like, again, we're doing this. And for them to release this news so late in the game, like we're a month away now almost. Like it's September here in a couple of days. So it's like, it's just so weird. Like,
But again, this will probably be the last point I bring up, just because I think we're running slightly long on this one. Just
Yeah.
we have too much to talk about here. But my question: you're saying this is late in the game, and I agree. This is a little late in the game in terms of an announcement to say where we're releasing this. Do you think it's any mistake that this was a late announcement after the success of Prey being strictly streaming and those big numbers coming out for Hulu and saying, well, there is a huge market there. So there's going to be an audience. Now, I do think that there was probably an audience that was not going to go see this in theaters and was just going to wait for a home release. But now, do you think that people are going to subscribe and say, well, I'm not going to go to the theater to see this, but I definitely want to check it out at home? So you could get a whole new group of subscribers that and eyes on this film that weren't necessarily going to go see it because maybe they didn't like Halloween Kills.
You're right. I think that it is a tough situation. But yes, I will go back to my little cave for a little bit now, because I am starting to kind of get out there with the Halloween conversation. We are making it stretch a little longer here. But yes, I just want to say, before, I always say it at the end of the show, but if you have any thoughts on this, let us know in the comment section below, because like I would love to hear other people's opinions on this. Were you planning on seeing this in theaters no matter what, or were you going to, as Luke said, were you just going to say after Halloween Kills, no, I'm good, I'll wait for it to come out on Blu-ray or come out on streaming? Because the other thing that I noticed Peacock has been doing, and we don't have to chase this down, is that a lot of stuff right before it comes out on Blu-ray, about a week or two before, is starting to hit Peacock, which is very interesting. We had the Black Phone. I know it's a little different for Jurassic World, as to where Jurassic World is going to be out in a few days here. I think by the end of the week it'll be on Peacock, but it's already out on Blu-ray, which is interesting. That's another thing that changed in this big streaming landscape, is that we're getting these big tentpole movies sometimes before they even hit home video. So
yeah,
it's interesting.
Peacock's coming to play. I mean, they have
They're trying, they're fighting. Yeah. And I mean, with the way Netflix is going, like there's a spot, there is a spot is opening up, and Hulu just took a big swing and hit and swung for the fences and made it. So yeah, Peacock, they could do it. They could climb up there. And I when I think about my canceling certain subscriptions, we're kind of cycling through that for our budget every couple months. I always sit there and think for a second, do I want to keep Peacock? And I'm like, yeah, I'm watching stuff on there. So it's like
there's always a good release on there. And then going just lightly into Prey for 1 second, I do feel like after that release on Hulu, there are so many people saying that it should have been in theaters. There's that buzz there, and there are people popping up that I had either weren't actual Predator fans until Prey, or they were just very closet in terms of being a Predator fan, because that has been out there. Everyone's saying how good Prey was, and it's like people that surprised me that have given that a watch, because I didn't think, I wouldn't peg them to being big Predator fans. So it's like, I'm curious to see if they're like, we want that buzz with
Halloween.
Yeah, Halloween, to say, we're bringing the fans back here. Because I think there is a different kind of satisfaction in the sense, this film, I'm mad that I went to the theater, I paid for that theater experience, and I didn't get it, as opposed to I'm at home, I'm subscribing here, I'm comfortable. After the credits roll, I just turn off the TV and I go about my business. So even if I don't like it, I'm not as mad about it because I didn't go out of my way to see it. So I'm curious to see if that's kind of going to be the dynamic as well.
Only time will tell, but yeah, I think that's all we can really say on Halloween at this moment in time. We'll have to put the genie back in its bottle, at least for another couple weeks.
We'll see what happens, but we can move on to our next little topic here. Crescent Cove is about to be terrorized once again by a killer clown invasion, but with a little twist this time around. TerraVision and Good Shepherd Entertainment released a teaser trailer for Killer Clowns from Outer Space, the game, this week, featuring some gameplay reminiscent of the 1988 cult film. The game promises to give you all the multiplayer madness, allowing you to play as the killer clowns themselves or as citizens of Crescent Cove as you try to avoid an intergalactic invasion. Featuring the cotton candy cocoons, the laser guns, and a vibrant aesthetic, this already looks like a perfect transition from film to video game. With so many well known horror properties making their way into the video game world, are the Killer Clowns set for video game domination? And I did a little short on this earlier in the week. I will say I am very sold on this. I'm very excited. Again, I don't think many people were expecting this. I don't know if anyone was.
I don't think
Just
this was
randomly
expected
dropped
at
out
all.
there, and from everything that I'm seeing, very positive.
Oh yeah, no, everybody seems real excited about this because it's something that nobody expected. I mean, like out of all the horror franchises that you could do an asymmetrical multiplayer game on, it's like Killer Clowns. Let's fucking go. It's weird, it's interesting, it's neat. And like you say, with you just brought up with Prey and all that, of the people who come out of the woodwork. This was surprising. There's a lot of people who came out of the woodwork on this and said, "Oh, I actually really like this movie," or "I really," because like, I feel like if I'm talking Killer Clowns, I'm talking with an avid horror fan, or at least somebody who's into that kind of subgenre. But it's like it's nice to see that movie kind of getting its praise now, and my social media has been inundated with Killer Clowns merch since the release of this trailer. And, I'm excited for it. I have to say, again, just like I did with the upcoming Texas Chainsaw game, how I feel about these asymmetrical multiplayer games, they're not my favorite. I don't necessarily like to have to rely on other players to play a video game. Like, I like multiplayer shooters. I like that because it's normally you can be in it for yourself and you can it's a very selfish mindset to have, I know. But it's like, at the end of the day, I'm worried about my stats, my stuff. I like games where I can get friends together and play, but like for the most part, we don't really play video games together, you and I. And my friends aren't as interested into the horror stuff as I am to play like a Friday the 13th or get a private lobby for that. Like they're not going to fork over their hard-earned cash for it.
Yeah.
I like things like Until Dawn or The Quarry, where you get those kind of like choose your own adventure kind of games. Like those are neat too. I like the stories in those, but it doesn't satisfy that itch that I want of like a Red Dead Redemption style, Grand Theft Auto style horror game where like you are like a serial killer or you're a character and you go around and you can plot your own ways of doing things. And you can pick it. It's like that's a whole nother concept. So this does seem like the way all the horror games are going right now after the Friday the 13th success and after Dead by Daylight. Yeah, I get it. But with that said, I think that this one looks like a great deal of fun. From what they've announced, what they've gotten, it is from the head developer of the Friday the 13th game. So that they've learned a lot from that experience, because that was definitely a tough one when it launched. They were not expecting the amount of people to get on that as we did. I remember we tried to do a live stream of it at one point, and we couldn't hardly even get into any games.
Yep.
It was tough, and it was weeks and weeks of waiting and trying, and but I'll go back on that every once in a while and play it. But this, if they keep it well-rounded, they keep everything balanced, and they get it going from day one, this could be a whole lot of fun. And I think I could get you and I in a lobby playing together on something like this. Because I know, as far as franchises go, Killer Clowns is one of those ones that you absolutely you love. You got a blanket for it back there. I mean,
I do. Sometimes I snuggle with the clowns, but I'm here for it 100%. I'm very excited. Again, I'm with you on the multiplayer. I'm not really that much into those types of games. I mean, I had the Friday 13th download, the digital. It ran its course for me. I feel like there's only so much out of that you can get. But I will say, like, I don't know, Killer Clowns for me it feels different. Where it's like looking at this film, it's so much fun just to watch that it translates so well into the video game world. So there's so much you can do here in terms of what kind of expansions are going to offer, things like that. It's so animated in a sense that it just feels natural to become a video game. And I know that there are a lot of Killer Clowns fans out there. I know that this film lived on Netflix for a long time. That's where a lot of people ended up finding it. So I think that there are fans out there that are kind of casual Killer Clowns fans. I don't know if necessarily those are the ones that are going to go out and actually purchase this game, but those hardcore horror community fans, I really feel like are probably going to go out and get this game. And I think that can kind of, I didn't really play too much in the Friday the 13th, but I feel like that is such a giant pop culture kind of horror property, whereas Killer Clowns is known but not as well known. So the people that are going to end up kind of going out and purchasing this game and playing it in terms of those multiplayer, the people you're going to be on teams with, I really feel like are going to be the ones that understand, that they've heard of Sleepaway Camp or The Burning, or, those are the people you're going to resonate with, so it's
Yeah.
like, I feel like that this game here is going to really bring a community together in terms of people you probably have never talked to, but when you're running around from the clowns trying to avoid those cotton candy cocoons, I mean, you're going to develop friendships throughout this one.
I hope so. I got the PC obviously as the main thing was to edit and do shorts and run the show. It's like it was a big thing, a big purchase for my life. But obviously I wanted something that I could do some streaming and PC gaming to as well. So this is going to be a pickup. Like I will be getting it and grabbing it. This is an intention we have. We've never fully, I think, come out and said it. That is something we're going to try to do as we go along here. Is not all the time. We're more film based here, more TV based, and it's just like I'm not a professional gamer, and I know Luke isn't either. So it's just one of those things where we're not going to go so hardcore into it. But I think we could have a lot of fun playing games like this, playing games like Evil Dead, which is again similar concept that I think performed really well. So if they're starting to figure it out, that's great. I would like that to be, like this. But again, I want a story-based horror game. I want something that plays a little bit more, like I said, a Grand Theft Auto, even like if you want to go for like a Last of Us or a God of War, I want something closer to that, less like this, and not so much like the Quarry. It's like we're kind of on two sides of a spectrum, and I just want that right in the middle. We're almost
you want that happy medium.
I do. I think that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre game could have really hit that because that's a good IP to do that with, but alas, we're not there yet. So, I mean, and I'm curious to see how that one goes. I mean, with this one kind of stealing the big horror video game thunder, I wonder what Texas Chainsaw is going to release because, again, like we discussed, it's only the first film's IP that we're dealing with. So they really need to figure that out because I think if they came out with a trailer that announced, we're doing Chop Top and all these other guys from the series, I think that would be like these two big franchises or semi-big franchises fighting in a boxing ring. That'd be a nice right hook to kind of be like, no, Texas Chainsaw is what we want you guys getting excited about. So either way, sorry, I'm excited.
And it's just what a time we're living in where this stuff is going to be available to horror fans. And honestly, what I'm excited for the Killer Clowns the game is that, is there going to be this resurgence in this franchise? Now, we had a few years ago, I believe, that there was kind of some news that there was going to be a follow-up to the original Killer Clowns, and it kind of went by the wayside, I think, with the whole MGM merger and everything like that. So it never really came out, never really went past any actual tangible news. I'm very intrigued to see if this is going to be the first steps to do something else, because I know that there is, I believe it's an IGN interview out there that they kind of talked a little bit more in depth about the video game. And I can't remember who they interviewed, but he had said, mentioned that I think they were talking more so in terms of video games, but he brought up a good point to say, when you're dealing with Leatherface or you're dealing with Jason Voorhees, it's like the story is centric around that character. So, the stories that are out there, you can say, oh, it has to be involved with that character. You're not going to, there's no other Jason Voorhees out there getting rid of Jason Goes to Hell. But so it's like he had brought up, who's to say that 1988 film was the only time that the Killer Clowns have visited Earth. You know, that's the only story
Very
that's out
true.
there. So you can have several different killer clowns out there in different decades. Hey, we can go back to Bray.
You son of a bitch. We had this conversation earlier this week where we made jokes about this, where it's like, yeah, they fucking killer clowns show up in 1700s and like they're fighting Comanche warriors and bullshit. Like, I'm down. Let's go.
There we go. Let's bring the cotton candy cocoons there. But so it's like, you know, I'm intrigued to see if this spawns anything more from just the video game, because we're getting so much merchandise. I missed out on the Waxwork vinyl. I waited too long to pull the trigger on that, so I'm kicking myself for it. But you know, we're getting a lot of Killer Clowns merchandise out there.
I
So
want those Toonie Terrors really bad.
yes,
When
and
they
it's like,
start hitting shelves, I'll buy all of them.
and that's where it's like, you know, NECA starts releasing the Ultimate Edition figures, things like that. I
I
mean,
hope so, man. I'm waiting for that announcement. Those would look so good.
it's like I feel like we're gonna get it. I mean, we're getting the T-shirts now. We're getting so much. There's maybe a rumor about the 4K. I don't know if you know. We haven't been able to find anything to confirm it, but we're really hoping for it. I do own the Arrow release for that.
It would make
So,
sense. Arrow's been putting all their stuff out on 4K,
Yeah.
so like, why not? It'll get here at some point. I just don't know if that image that you saw is legit or not.
yeah. So I'm curious to see if that's going to be something tangible. But I feel like that this is going to spawn some sort of property. I mean, a few. What I don't know if it was a month ago, we were talking about animated series, like animated series that, you know, can make that transition, and we messed around with Critters versus Killer Clowns. So
I
it's
was about
like,
to
you know,
say, let's
it's
do
like
it.
we could easily see a Killer Clowns TV series on, you know, not necessarily Shudder, but you know, anywhere. You know, anywhere's hungry for content right now. So I'm curious to see what this holds for the Killer Clowns IP in general.
Hire us to at least write the Killer Clowns Critters crossover. We have ideas. There are things that we can do with that. I think
We're
it would be a
percolating.
lot of
Come
fun.
on.
It is awesome.
We're generating ideas here.
Always. We're good
All right,
content
well, we can
creators.
move into our next little topic here. We officially know when The Dead will rise, and we are going to have to go to the theater to see it. Evil Dead Rise was set to hit HBO Max exclusively, but with no release date set, we all felt like maybe this film was locked away in the cellar to be forgotten about. In a surprise announcement, Warner Brothers announced the film will now be hitting theaters exclusively on April 21st, 2023. The film is described as a fresh take on the franchise, giving us fresh meat taking on some Deadites in Los Angeles. With the Evil Dead fanbase forever staying loyal to those original films, this new take has the series will have big shoes to fill. Will this film leave us waving our boomsticks in satisfaction, or will we be chopping off our hands as the credits roll? I don't know, Dylan. This again was a big surprise because every bit of news had said that this was going to be released on HBO Max, and I think that was kind of questioning a lot of people's feeling for the quality of the film itself, because it wasn't going to be released in theaters, and I don't think that was ever the discussion. It was to be released in the theaters, so this was kind of big news.
Yeah, no, this was a big surprise. I remember when, as soon as I saw this, I sent the article to you because, obviously Evil Dead, we're huge fans of it. Any horror fan, really, I think you can't really find somebody out there who's not. I absolutely fucking adore every movie in this franchise, and the show to an extent. I still need to finish it, but I love what Sam Raimi and everybody was able to create with that original film. Army of Darkness is one of the best sequels, and I think that the remake, which is now classified as a sequel, was also excellent. I just think like they've never missed with any of the content they put out. I mean, even the video game came out and it's great reviews and great praise. It's a lot of fun. I was a little worried about this, like not gonna lie. It was one of those things where, hearing about it, like I know they're trying to bolster HBO Max, and this was before we even started the show, and we kind of just started having these weekly discussions about streaming. And I was just like, oh man, you're putting it on streaming. What does that mean for the quality? But now I've kind of learned that we're getting out of that age. We kind of need to start looking at it as like, it's less, it could be bad. It's more this 50-50. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not an indictment on the quality at all.
It's not. Yeah. But I know the director, a lot like how Ryan Coogler went to Stallone for Creed, came to Sam Raimi and said, "Hey, I have an idea. I'd really love to do this." So there's a lot of passion behind this, and Sam Raimi was like, "Yeah, let's do it. Like, I like this. Let's go forward with it." So when you have someone as passionate who's a fan like that, of course I'm excited for it. I want you to go ahead and do it. And now that the film's done, it's been in the can for a little while there, and we've been just waiting to hear when this is going to release. This really gets me excited, and really I think cements me being on board with this film and the concept and all, because it's like, well, we never hear this anymore. We never hear about movies that are supposed to be on streaming going to theaters. We only really ever hear about movies that were supposed to be in theaters going to streaming. So the fact that it's reversed, and I think they said it on the John Campea show, that I thought was a really great quote, was just like, "I love when good movies are rewarded." And the fact that this, apparently they watched it, the heads over at Warner Brothers who were taking over, they watched it, they fucking adore it, and they were like, "We need to put this in theaters. There's no way this is just going to be a streaming exclusive. Like, will it come up? Of course, it'll probably end up on HBO Max later on down the road." But the fact that they're like, "This is that good. It's a horror property," and they're like, "We need this in theaters right now." I'm so happy about this. I'm so excited. It does relieve some of that stress I had about, will this kind of be the one to derail the franchise? No, it seems like this is good signs.
Do you find that April release to be odd in any sense?
No, because I believe the last Evil Dead, the remake, came out in March.
But hasn't this has been done and ready to go, hasn't it? I thought this, because the kind of narrative has been, who knows when it's going to pop up, because it is done. I was a little surprised at how late they're waiting to release this.
You got to think too, we're dealing with a very stacked October already. We're going to have Halloween. We just got the little bit of news, which we haven't really gotten to talk about. I guess we could have thrown it at the top, but there will be an opportunity to discuss it when the trailer hits. But Hellraiser officially got its release date confirmed through Hulu, so that's another one coming straight to streaming. So it's like, we have a lot coming out. And then September alone, we have things like Barbarian and all kinds of other shit, just original horror properties dropping. So there's a lot going on right now, and I don't think you want to drop something like this in around Christmas or around the winter months. You want this to be kind of like, let's use this as like our just before the summer movie season. It's dropping around the same time like an X did and stuff like that. So it's kind of like, I've grown to expect, if we're going to get some decent horror, some decent movies in general, it's at springtime. It's right before the big summer blockbusters come in and start taking over cinemas. You're going to have that. I think it's a fair release date. And also, I was wrong. Evil Dead 2013 came out April 5th.
Okay.
And that movie crushed. So they already have a track record of saying, hey, it did, and I have the box office right here. So it was a $17 million film, and just on its opening weekend alone, it almost made $26 million. It was at $25,777. So it's a good time, I think.
And I guess April is that time where I think people are becoming more excited to go outside. Where it's like half the time you're avoiding even leaving your house because you want to avoid the cold. And then April's like, oh, okay, so the weather's getting warmer. I want to go see something in the theater. So I think you could get those fans as well, especially, again, horror movies are always a selling point for even a general audience because everyone wants to be scared. I'm intrigued for this one, certainly. You said, 2013 was the last one?
The last theatrical Evil Dead release.
Because I haven't watched Ash vs. Evil Dead yet. I haven't dove down that rabbit hole yet because I know
I've seen a few episodes. I would say that it's very entertaining. I just haven't gone through and watched all of it yet. But since I got this set and it does come with the whole series, I have more motivation to kind of be like, well, I'm going to go through and watch it all.
Yeah, I just know it's a big commitment, so I haven't fully sat down.
That's my issue too. There's just not enough time ever to sit down because I want to sit down and enjoy it.
Yeah.
And then it seems like if it's always one of those things where it's like, I just don't, with us doing the show and everything, I just never find time to just sit down and put on a show that's just like, I want to do this. Like, I'm a huge Marvel guy. I keep saying it. And I have been slacking so hard on my Marvel shows recently. Like,
Yeah.
I still have to finish Miss Marvel. I watched the first 2 episodes of She-Hulk just last week, or yesterday. I'm sorry, last week, whatever. Yesterday morning, because I had a little bit of time, and I was super excited for that because I love the character and I love Hulk. So it's just like, I had to find some time to commit it, but I'm 2 episodes behind as it was. So it was just
Yeah.
like, this is where
Now
I'm
it's like
at.
there's so much things we have to do research on that it's like you have a moment of free time, that's what you're gonna end up checking out.
Yep, and I'm rewatching Dog Soldiers or something 3 times over. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, what can you do? It's a good film though. But so it's like for me, I'm excited to go back and live in this space. I just recently I didn't fully watch it all. I'm halfway through the original Evil Dead, so it's like going back and just thinking of where this is all spawned from to begin with. To kind of just that space in general. I'm excited to see what this new story is going to tell. I've just read. I mean, I don't think there's much out about this story right now. So I'm intrigued just from the light synopsis that we've been given here. Just a change of scenery to see where they're going to go with it. Because I believe this one is in an apartment building, is what it sounded like.
yeah, it's a high rise.
So I'm very intrigued to kind of see where this is going to go. And the kind of characters that we're going to kind of encounter here, I guess. So I really want to see what kind of take they're going to take on the franchise here. What new things are going to bring to it. And I guess we're going to see this in theaters. So we'll be there opening night, I'm sure.
Oh, I'll be there opening night, 100%. I'm so excited for this. Like I said, Evil Dead, one of the greatest horror franchises, in my opinion, out there. So it's just like, it's awesome to hear that we're going to see it on the big screen again.
There is this kind of intimidation, though, where it's like this one, looking at like diving into Halloween or Friday 13th, where they have their hits and then they have their misses. Where Evil Dead's like, it's like a undefeated fighter going into their next fight, where there's an added pressure because you don't want to get that loss, So it's like taking on this film franchise is like it has to be intimidating from the very start to be like even going through. I'm sure the director is sitting there second guessing himself, thinking, is this going to live up to the standards? Because everyone criticizes their own work. So, and the Evil Dead fan base, they're rabid. You know what I mean? So you really have to please everyone here.
Oh, I'll be critical as all can get out. Like, I'm not afraid to, really let people know how I feel about a franchise, especially when it comes to this. I think like with Halloween, that was a big testing ground for me because how excited we both were for that movie.
Yes.
And just for it to not really hit with us was tough. So it's like
Yep.
It's interesting, but I'll be the first to say it if I'm not happy with this. But it is one of those things where it's like I just don't want to go in with that mindset. I want to go in and just be excited to sit down and watch Evil Dead on the big screen.
It's going to be an experience either one way or
Either
another.
Either way, so, good or bad, it'll be something.
I know we're probably going to end up rewatching all those films, and
we'll be doing episodes leading up to that for sure.
I'm sure. So it'll be a fun space to relive, regardless of whether this film resonates with us or not.
Yeah, March, early April. That's going to be the time of Evil Dead. It seems like is when we're going to be able to dive into all that. So I'm excited.
It's going to be a party. All right, let's move into our last little bit of news. Rebecca McKendry's newest film, Glorious, hit Shudder last week, giving a unique take on your run-of-the-mill rest stop glory hole encounter. Ryan Quanten did a lot of heavy lifting during the film, but was greatly complimented by the voice acting of J.K. Simmons, mixing some brief comedy, a lot of horror, and intertwining cosmic gods, very reminiscent of H.P. Lovecraft, will ensure her film is going to be on horror fans' watch lists for years to come. With a lot of H.P. Lovecraft works being made and in production, is cosmic horror becoming a subgenre heavy hitter? And Dylan, I know we talked about this last week where I was pretty pleased with this film. You had yet to watch it, and I know you've sat down and committed to giving this a full run through. So Dylan, what were your thoughts on Glorious?
I enjoyed this movie quite a bit. I thought that it was a surprise. I was really happy to hear that you liked it. Because notoriously in our history, with stuff like this, you tend to be a bit more critical, especially because you have kind of a more you have a very specific taste when it comes to your kind of cosmic horror.
Yes.
As to where it's like me, it's kind of more surface level. I hate to say that, but it's like I do appreciate great cosmic horror, but like I am there for a lot of the cool body horror and the imagery and everything. Um, First and foremost, I must say, and I think that this is a really great balance of not only what they choose to do with the cosmic horror and even the comedy, but they do a lot of great character stuff. I was surprised to see how long it took us to get to the actual entity that our character is dealing with. And I always appreciate good character stuff, and like that was really surprising and a pleasant thing to find in the early half of this movie, because it's not like they're breaking the mold with anything that they're doing with their character, but it's the fact that there's an attempt there, and you can tell that there was a quality to the story that they wanted to tell. And I think that a lot of props need to be going to, and I'm not sure what his name is.
The main actor?
Yeah, Ryan.
Ryan Quanten.
Ryan Quanten. You got to give him some props because he really did a great job of selling that. He
Oh,
sold
yeah.
The turmoil he's in. He sold the comedy. He sold the madness that later kind of permeates the film as you go along. And then, what can I say about J.K. Simmons that hasn't already been said? The man's a master class. I mean, you want to see some of the greatest acting in his career, you got to watch Whiplash.
Oh,
I
man.
mean, like, and still he's J. Jonah Jameson in Spider-Man, the original Sam Raimi trilogy, and the new ones. So it's just like you already know how established this guy is, and the fact that he's playing a glory hole fucking cosmic monster is just great. Like, let's fucking go. Like, I love it.
And my first introduction to J.K. Simmons that I remember, I had seen him in the Spider-Man films, but never knew who he was. I started watching, oh my gosh, why am I forgetting the name of it? It was an HBO series where they're all in prison, and he plays a white supremacist named.
Are you talking about Oz?
Yes, Oz, thank you. He plays a white supremacist named Schillinger, and my gosh, what a phenomenal performance! You absolutely hate him in that, and
But you love to hate him. You know what
yeah.
I mean? It's one of those.
And it's like just seeing that guy, looking at him, being like, "This guy's got some chops," you know what I mean? And then finding out he's like, what, the yellow M&M, and like, all this different stuff. It's like the guy's been around for so long, so to see him get something like Whiplash was just glorious in a sense. So it's like looking at this. These kinds of concepts of films are really hard to do in terms of like it's in one setting for the most part. Ryan Quanten's on screen by himself for the majority of this film. We do some flashbacks, so it's like it had to be strenuous on him to kind of get that kind of that range of acting out, and I think he does that so well here. And even J.K. Simmons, I mean, the guy's well versed, seasoned, but like even just to do the voice acting. It's not like a normal animated sort of film where it's like, hey, this dog's doing this, this is your emotion. You're playing a cosmic god stuck in a bathroom stall about a movie about a talking glory hole. You know what I mean? Like, how do you even go about kind of approaching that kind of role? So even on J.K. Simmons' part, no matter how seasoned you are, you really have to try and pull that off. And I mean, he does it perfectly. He just has that voice for voice acting. I mean, he's a great actor, but his voice acting for him is also top notch. He's so well versed in it. And like this one, I didn't know how I felt about it 100%. And then they do something with the main character where it's kind of a unveiling of sorts. And I was like, oh, this is very good, because they have you believing something throughout this entire film. And then they really dive into his past, and you're like, whoa, everything that he was doing beforehand totally makes sense, because they sprinkle in hesitation in terms of, maybe calling law enforcement or whatever, and weird things he's doing at the very beginning that don't make any sense. But then you put it all together toward the end of it, and you're like, they were playing us all along.
Yeah, and I think they do a really good job of just like with their reveals. They're steady, and they're it is only an hour and 19 minutes, which is surprising to me. Very short movie. It's very much a breeze, but like you're just kind of you see these reveals and things as they are coming along, and they're things that you just kind of, like you said, it's like you're into it. To me, I was into it pretty solidly before those reveals even happened, but it was just one of those things where it's like when they did hit, I was just like, okay, now this is definitely where I can give this movie some higher marks. I can say, like, you took a risk, you did something great here. And I think that, it does pay off. I really think it pays off well.
And, not to say that I was not into it
Mm-hmm.
before the unveiling of anything, but, like, I guess I go into certain films, like, a lot of cosmic horror things, depending on what they are, can be a little off kilter, and I approach them more so as experience films rather than storytelling films. And, like, this one, I was approaching it more so as an experience film, and that's what I was kinda taking out of it for the most
And
part,
then
and then they do the character work here, and I was like, no, they have a story to tell." They weren't just focusing on the kind of odd cosmic H.P. Lovecraft kind of feel here, they really wanted to tell a unique story, which I do think they achieved here.
Yeah, no, and I think this is definitely worth a watch. I mean, like I said, for an hour and 19 minutes of your time, it is a breeze. It's nothing to commit to. So it's just like, you can sit down and watch this. And I think, like, even for people who might be put off by the concept, because you've mentioned Glory Hole film. And, because this was a point of contention for us just a couple weeks ago when we were going to talk about the trailer. We were trying to decide Sunday scary topics, and I was very much like, oh, we should talk about Glorious and stuff, but you were just kind of like, I don't know, like it's just kind of, that stigma of it, you know what I mean? Where
Yep.
it's just kind of like this could just be some garbage of it, and then it comes out and it's like of a higher quality, you know what I mean? Like it's nice to see that. It is
Yeah.
nice to have something that is kind of one of those gross topics of just like this could have easily been something that you would have heard a concept for of like an 80s film, and they really fill it with like all of the debauchery and grossness of the concept. But no, they actually like they had a lot of depth to the creature, to the main character and everything, and it's just nice to see it because it's like I think if we're going to kind of turn that stigma around to not have like something like that happen where it's like a movie gets announced like this, because I've got a concept that I haven't even shared with you yet. I'm working on writing a bit of it before I share it to you because I'm afraid of the stigma that it's going to have,
Yeah.
because it's out there, it's different, um, and it's one of those things where it's like I know that like that is going to be such a hard sell, but I think like there's a level to it that I'm trying to add, like with Glorious, where it's like it's not necessarily the concept isn't everything. There's more to the story that we're trying to tell, and it's just like if we can get more movies like this where you are sold on the fact that it's going to be a weird glory hole, cosmic horror creature, but you go in and you find out that it's actually a story about a guy who's gone through a lot of shit, and has been through a lot of shit and has put himself in a really rough spot in life. And you come out with all that, I think that you've got yourself a formula for a really good film. And
Yeah.
like I'd say that it's worth checking out, especially it's on Shutter, so you're not paying to see it or anything. It's just like Shutter's been killing it. Like Shutter has had like they really do come out like a lot. We talk about Peacock a lot on here, but like Shutter just as much they come out with an original every once in a while that I think is just a couple of steps above some of their other affairs. And like I'd say this one's definitely a few steps up. Like I would definitely see myself owning this movie and revisiting it from time to time, just because, like I said, it's not a huge commitment, and it's fun and it's enjoyable, and it's got the gore, it's got all the trippy stuff you come and look for in cosmic horror. The body horror is there. It's a complete package.
Yeah, and going into like the concept you're talking about, the glory hole kind of concept of the stigma around it, and we talk about films on the podcast all the time where it's more conceptual, where we're sitting around thinking of fun ideas, and it really that the fun idea it never really moves past that phase. You know what I mean? You try to get it there, but there's not very much of a story to kind of grab onto post the fun little log line that you come up with, and that kind of was my reservation going into Glorious. Was like, okay, it's a fun little tongue in cheek deal, and they're not really going to expand upon anything, or it's just going to be um, kind of a visual display that probably is not on par with a lot of visual displays that we're used to. So I wasn't really sure what to think going into this, and I'm gonna say like I think the effects work for the most part here. I think the lighting. I mean, like we have the picture up there. It's very reminiscent of that. That's not an exaggerated picture for the most part. It
No.
really sets that tone in that rest stop kind of bathroom, so you really do have that feeling in there. One of the things I do enjoy that they tell the backstory kind of this cosmic god in the way they do it on the bathroom stall.
Oh
Kind
yeah.
of like the visual standpoint of it. I thought that was really smart. It really added to kind of the lore of the story that they were telling, and to visually display it in the fashion they did, I thought was a lot of fun. Even the kind of monster that's drawn onto the bathroom stall with the glory hole around it, I thought was a lot of fun. So, and even they kind of comment on there's a part in there where the I think the god's name's Gat, maybe.
Yeah, Gat.
And he's looking for an offering from Ryan Quanten's character, and they kind of, he mistakes it. I'll tell this little part here. It's a minor spoiler, but he thinks it's his penis, so he puts his penis to the glory hole, and then the reaction
It's
to
perfect.
is
It's
J.K.
so
Simmons' Gat
good.
is
What the fuck is that?
wonderful. It's a laugh
Like,
out loud moment. So it's like it was just it's smart writing. I think it's really well done. Like you're talking about owning this on Blu-ray, the rewatch value is here. Sometimes these films are one and done. You got your fill and you file it away and you move on to the next thing. Glorious is something you can go back and you can watch. I don't think effects wise it's ever going to be dated because they don't dive that much into it, and the stuff
no,
that they
and the
do
way
dive
they kind
into,
of
they do really
present
well.
the way they present Gad is really smart too.
Yes.
There's a lot of shots where you only see kind of little bits and stuff of him under the stall and things like that. So it's like, they do it in a really smart way to kind of get that your mind racing on what fully he could be, what he could look like. And I enjoy that.
Yeah, so Glorious, uh, a top-notch film.
Yep. I give it a
Being on
recommendation.
Shudder, easily accessible, worth at least a monthly subscription, if not a yearly. Shudder has been killing it with a lot of these releases here. Um, I think what Revealer came out a month and a half ago ish, 2 months. I
I think it
can't
was like
remember.
June. Yeah, so about
So
2 months ago.
another good one, worth watching. So definitely give Glorious a watch if you have not yet. Can't speak highly enough of it.
100%. I'm right there with you. All right, I guess we'll get into my segment, which we used to call Blu-ray and streaming, but Luke came up with a nice creative title, and I made this for it.
The top of the world, fabulous 1340 KAB, Antonio Bay.
Yes, so this is going to be now considered this week's Gore cast. So it's no longer going to be, Blu-ray and streaming in and of itself, just because, Luke kind of came to me just after we posted the last show on last Sunday and was just like, hey, I think that, we do run into an issue where we kind of have a lot of hit or miss weeks with Blu-ray and streaming. Some weeks are stronger than others. Some weeks, there's hardly anything to talk about. Unfortunately, this is one of those weeks. I hate to have this one be the seminal this is where we're debuting all this, but it's kind of like we just gotta take it with what we got and roll with it and move on. But I was down with this. It took a little bit of convincing, I'm not gonna lie, because I was like, oh well, it's like, I think it's a pretty simple thing, but after some talking, sometimes Luke's gotta give my brain a minute, and he's got to let me talk about it. He's like, think about it, let's talk about it. And by the time I was making this logo, I was like, this is a much cleaner, much better way to present this material, because it does give us stuff to fall back on in case the releases are light, or the streaming doesn't offer anything crazy. You know what I mean? Like it does. And so with it being a gore cast, a play on forecast, basically I'm going to be covering a lot of stuff, all of our releases for the week. So the big one that I can highlight for you guys right now is, like I said earlier, this is unfortunately for the box office been the weakest weekend to date for the summer movie season. It's not too uncommon to kind of get to that point towards the end of August, early September, Really just depends on what your releases are coming out. Still, there's about one or two that kind of fit in here on certain weeks. Like, last week we had Dragon Ball, not talking horror, but that really crushed it at the box office because that's like kind of a big niche thing. And we had Beast, which did really well for itself and actually had quite a few positive reviews, which I was happy to see.
Yep.
This week we had one that we had considered checking out, but I don't think either of us were really that sold on it. Not to go, throw up our hard-earned cash for, but I'm talking about The Invitation. And I'm not talking about the film from a few years ago that's actually pretty good. I am discussing this recent one that is a vampire film. And unfortunately, it looks like for the most part, it's pretty run-of-the-mill. It's not doing too well. It did top the box office this weekend, but it is also the lowest, like I said, of the summer. It just doesn't seem to be resonating with enough people. I think I put a lot of this on the marketing because like we really didn't get a lot for this movie until, I would say about July.
Yeah.
And then by then it was just kind of like,
It was in front of
enough.
It was in front of the Black Phone. From the
That's
first
like, I think the first time I saw the trailer.
and it ran in front of the very first time I saw the Black Phone, and the other two times it did not. So I don't know if the confidence wasn't there. And a lot of people had I think, didn't we talk about it and you were like, wait, that's vampires? And
Yeah, I had no idea.
and so it was just like, I don't know if the marketing was fully there in terms of explaining what the full concept was. And also, one of the things I think about is that the vampire space is a little harder to navigate, I feel, where it's like us being huge werewolf fans. If there's a werewolf film out there, we're probably going to at least check it out just to see what the story is, what kind of take there is, where there's so much vampire kind of media out there that even people who love vampires are going to be like, well, is this my kind of vampire story? Where it's like the kind of idea of a werewolf sells us, but the idea of a vampire maybe not even sell a vampire aficionado in that subgenre. You know what I mean? Where it's like, we have to really see if the story's there. And for this one, like you're saying, seems very run of the mill. Doesn't seem like very not too unique in any sense. So it's like, I don't know if that selling point was there even for it being vampires.
Yeah, no, from what I understand, it seems to be, not necessarily the most, like, it sets it up pretty well in the trailer, I'd say, after finally learning what it was, where it's just like, okay, so it's an interesting concept of her going and, doing one of these, like, 23andMe things, and she finds out she's got a bunch of family over in England. She goes over to visit them, and there's a wedding going on, but then you kind of find out, oh, this is a family of vampires, and, there's a little bit more to it. The wedding thing, I thought the trailer itself feels very reminiscent of Ready or Not.
Yeah.
As to oppose, I think that's more of an original,
a lot online.
more of a fun concept with that, to where it seems like this movie takes itself pretty seriously, and I guess that's kind of the issue with it, is it doesn't necessarily seem to do anything that different aside from just the introduction of, like, the 23andMe thing. And it is what it is. I mean, you're going to have movies like this that come out and they don't hit. Unfortunately, it does involve vampires, which I think are a pretty cool, they're a great creature. They're classic. They've been done 100 times, but it's been a little while since we've had a really great vampire film that's kind of blown us away. We haven't had a Fright Night or a 30 Days a Night or anything in a long time.
And that's where it's like, I still think no matter how much vampire actual media is out there, I think there's still a lot of unique stories to tell regarding vampires, but I don't think The Invitation really offers that uniqueness that we're looking for, because again, it does become a hard space to navigate because there are so many stories out there where it's like, and even this, if it's reminiscent of something that's already been well done in terms of like Ready or Not, then it just seems like I'll go watch Ready or Not rather than taking a gamble on a vampire flick. So for me, like, I don't think I've seen too many rave reviews about this online. I think most of the things that I had seen were previous to its release and it was the comparison to Ready or Not. So I don't think there was a lot of buzz around this in any sense. And I don't
No.
know what it looks like after it's been released, because up until the day before, maybe it was like later that night or something, I was looking to see if there were any reviews on it, because you had brought it up to me to say, this is coming out. I don't know if it's something you want to talk about or not. And I was like, I don't really have any plans on seeing it. And I didn't think you did either. So I was trying to look to see if there was anything out about it to say, maybe it's decent or maybe it's good. And I could not find anything.
No, I saw one review for it, and it wasn't. It was from Cody Leach. It wasn't very good. He was not impressed with it. Now, although I like him as a creator, and I agree with some of his opinions, we don't always see eye to eye. But this just seems, from his description and everything, I feel like I could trust his opinion on something like this.
Yeah.
So it's like it's not going to get my money right now. If it shows up on a streaming service, could I throw it on just to give it a few minutes of my time to see if it sells me? Sure. But again, it's not something that I really feel the need to go out into theaters and see right now, with a lot going on. We have a lot of content that we're prepping for. So it's like it's kind of going to be one of those things where, we're going to be picking and choosing kind of what we want to go and see and what we want to spend our time with. Now, a movie that I wasn't very similar to this, I wasn't super up on, but I hear from early reviews and from some other things that I heard about it and found out about it, I hear is actually very good and very intriguing, is Barbarian, coming to us in about 2 weeks here.
I'm intrigued by that one.
Yeah, I think that would be worth us going and checking out and offering a review on, just because I think that the concept, the trailer is interesting to me, yes. And now that I'm hearing such positive buzz around it, I'm just like, okay, I think that this is, I enough has been built up for me from the trailer and the positive buzz and just some of the casting that I didn't realize was in it. I'm just like, okay, this could be good. I could really see myself enjoying, at least giving this a chance.
And Barbarian was another one that played in front of the black phone initially, and then I went to the theater I wanted to see that trailer again, and it never played again in front of the black phone the next 2 times that I had seen it. So to be honest, I was sold on the trailer just from watching. I was like, I want to check that one out. So yeah, I think that one will probably be one that will pull me out to the theater.
Okay, well, sounds good. We've committed now, Luke, so we have to do it.
There we go.
But yeah, guys, that's about it for your Gorecast. Like I said, not much going on here. Once there is a little bit more, there's going to be a lot, like with History of Horror, a little graphic that I am going to build and throw up for this. And like I said, I just didn't have much. In the vein of Blu-ray releases, there is really nothing of any kind of note that I could say that's anything new that we didn't know about already. We've had a lot of really strong couple of weeks here with Dog Soldiers coming out last week and all this other stuff where it's just like we've been spoiled a little bit, so there is going to be a bit of a drought. We'll see what happens this week. We had a lot of rumors, like we had discussed. Luke and I, we saw that there was some form of mention of a Killer Klowns 4K, at least some imagery that was leaked, but nothing has been confirmed by Dawn of the Disc or Blu-ray.com or even Arrow itself. So it's like, whether that's real or not, I guess the jury's still out and we'll have to find out. But if it is, we'll definitely be revisiting the Killer Klowns with that conversation, because I think that is one that was ripe for a 4K.
And I think, with this week's Gorecast, I think it could be interesting. And, we're not going to commit to anything. This is kind of me throwing an idea out to Dylan on air. So we had talked about, upcoming maybe horror-based events coming up, different cons, things like that. So we could always cover random events maybe happening. And if we venture out that way in terms of whichever horror cons we end up at, maybe you'll get a little B-roll footage of us out there and kind of covering the event itself.
Yeah, it's definitely, it gives us more of an opportunity to cast a wider net than just the Blu-ray and streaming of it. And like we said at the top of the show, we are always up for moving and swaying and just trying to produce the best content we can for you guys. So yeah.
And speaking of producing content. In terms of what we will be releasing this week is a new episode of Splattercast.
Yes,
So,
sir. There will be a new episode of Splattercast coming up, so keep an eye on that.
things
Monday
are going
at
to get a little hairy.
Oh, yeah. Monday at 7 a.m. We will be releasing that as usual, so keep an eye out for it. It's a pretty long episode. I think looking back on it, it is our longest episode yet. We have just been climbing on that timer, but I love talking about it. I love doing it. So it's just like it's a lot. And the amount of research that had to go into this one was heavy. Like there was so much to talk about, and we didn't even cover everything. So it was nice. It was one of those, you pick the title and you don't necessarily know what it's going to be. There's a lot of stuff behind the scenes, but then you kind of get into it and you're like, holy crap, there's a lot to this.
Yeah,
So,
there's so much to go through and sift through that you don't even realize seeing an hour and a half film that there's so much goes into it, and the kind of not necessarily drama, but drama that goes on in terms of on set and production and releases and all that type of thing. So there's always so much to unpack with a lot of these films, especially in a
yeah.
horror realm, it seems like.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's always stuff going on behind the scenes with these things, and we're just so lucky to kind of crack this one open and find that there was a lot of Easter eggs. So it's like, we'll see as we continue on. We got a pretty great schedule coming up for you guys over the next few Splattercasts. But yes, Monday, you will find a new episode here on the channel, as well as on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, and Stitcher, all of the places where your podcasts are found. So keep an eye out for that. Again, any of the news stories, any of the topics we covered today, any of the conversations that you want to get in on, feel free to drop a comment below. We'd love to keep it going with you guys as always. And you can also reach out to us on Twitter at SplattercastPod if you have any news or just want to keep up the conversation over there. We are always keeping up with it. We are on the verge of getting a few more social medias up and going, so stay tuned for that. They will definitely be announced on Sunday Scaries at some point. We're just kind of, like I said, we got a lot on our plate right now. We're sifting through and getting things ready for you guys to have a really fun-filled October. And yeah, just keeping the content flowing and keeping things going here on this channel as always. If you liked what you heard today, if you liked what you've heard in the past, if you think that we deserve it, feel free to give us a subscription. That goes a long way for us. We are trying to reach 50 by the end of the month. So, at this being released today, we're coming up on the last few days. We're at 48 as of recording this. So I am hoping that we will cross that bridge, and that would be super nice. Really keep the motivation going. But you guys have been doing great. I mean, to be at 50 and to really only be releasing content since I think mid-April, early May, maybe. I'd have to
I
go
think it
back
was
and
May.
look. It wasn't May. Yeah, maybe it was May. I mean, to be there already by the end of the summer is just a dream come true for us. We really like that you guys are enjoying our stuff and showing up. And like I said, we just want to keep the quality up and keep moving things forward. So again, if you think we deserve it, feel free to hit that subscription. If you want to get notifications for us as well, hit that bell. And we will be back here again next Sunday with more stories and everything for you. Luke, you got anything for the good people at home?
Busy week. We'll be back, obviously, like Dylan said, next week with all your latest news. But until then, I'm Luke Janesco.
And I'm Dylan Newell.
And friends, stay scared.